Hi guys, so this week we're going to be working with cutout puppets and using Adobe Character Animator. I have this puppet character. It has several parts. I've got the back of the coat, as you can kind of see here. I've got an umbrella. I've got a body with a head, but I separated the arms. I want you to be aware of those. I have a left arm and a right arm, as you can see, and they're separated, but they overlap. So these are just the things that I did to create this puppet. And then finally, I have this, if I turn off the body, you can see I have the eyes and the pupils separated for this part. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to take this character that I drew with these layers, and we're going to be deconstructing all of these individual elements so that they fit inside of this folder structure right here. And everything needs to be exactly labeled with the pluses and the capitals and no misspellings. Otherwise, this will not work. As an example, I have this face group right here. I could turn everything else off except for this little face group here. And for instance, this is layer 008. I would go ahead and say, okay, I know I'm going to need, based on this information, I'm going to need a left eye and a left eyeball, a left pupil, and a left eyebrow. So I'm going to go ahead and start by duplicating this layer, Command J, typing left eyebrow. And according to the list there, it is not a folder, but it has a plus in front of the word, so I name it exactly. Now I'm going to turn off this original layer that I duplicated so I can see what's going on. Select this. I'm going to use the eraser tool, and I'm going to erase everything but the left eyebrow. So I'm going to erase all this and just leave the left eyebrow. Then I'm going to do this again. I'm going to go to layer 8, jump it, Command J, call it right plus right eyebrow. And I'm going to turn off the original layer so I can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to select everything but the right. I'm going to erase everything but the right eyebrow, and I'm going to continue doing this until I have a left eyebrow, a right eyebrow. I have a folder called left eye, and in the left eye I have left pupil, which is just a dot. I have the left eyeball, which is the white of the eyes, and I have this new layer called left blink. And I'm going to be showing you what that looks like right here. So after I've done all that work, here is the structure that I have. I'm going to show you the head so you can see. I'm turning everything else off, but you can see here the left eyebrow, the right eye, and inside of the right eye I have the pupil itself. And notice that it's got a plus. I've got the eyeball itself. And I've got the blink. Now the blink will cover the entire, all these different things. So the blink I created as a new layer, and I just added a little like eyelashes and those kinds of things. And I did the same with I'm going to turn the blink off. By default, the blink should be turned off. I did the same with the left eye. You can see all the things are structured correctly, and the blink is turned off. And then the mouth, what I did is I used the templates, and I just hand did the mouth. Here's some example of mouths that I used. You have to have one of each of these in the mouth. So I use this as like a template in order to create the mouth set. And so if I open up this mouth set here, you'll see that I've got my neutral mouth, but I also have a smile and I have a surprise, and all this. I better turn on the face so you can see what this looks like. I have the letter ooh and whoa and S and R, and I used the basic mouth shapes, and notice I have one for each phoneme that we're going to be hearing. So these are in essence visemes, or visual phonemes, and you can see D is on. By default, the neutral mouth is on. These three mouths have no sound, so they will come up as we need it, and then the rest of the mouths will actually come on screen based on just talking. So the computer will do all the work for you. I've got a little nose here, and you can see that's just like in the middle of the face, and it's labeled nose. Notice there's no plus here, but there is a plus in front of the mouth folder, but there's no pluses in front of any of the mouth things. These are all important things that you need to get correct. And then finally, the face background, labeled like this, actually holds the entire face along with the neck. Now let's go over the body here, because this is a little different. Your body might just have the word body here, and that's it, and that's fine too. But what I did was make a left arm and a right arm, and notice how they overlap. So I have my left arm here, and it's overlapping so that if I were to rotate this or move this, I still have plenty of stuff behind the body here that would hold it, so it wouldn't feel like it's just floating around or it's disconnected. So, and notice the plus left arm, plus right arm. I have my body group here, and then I've got one more addition here, the coat back, which is behind the feet, and will give this character a little bit of dimension. So there's that. Finally, I made an umbrella as a separate item, and I took it out of the head group and the body group, but I left it in the Alice, the entire Alice group, or at least it should be. Let's go ahead and put that into the Alice group and put it way at the bottom here. There we go. I'll just move the head. Now the head is above the body. If I move the head below the body, you'll see it kind of cuts off right here. So it is important, the stacking layer, right? And the arms are above the body, because if the body was in front of the arms, it would look like this. So be aware of the stacking that you have going on, and save it as a Photoshop document. I'm calling it Alice Final PSD. What we're going to be getting, if you've been using it, you'll probably be brought right into the previous assignment that you were using. But what we're going to do is go to the Home tab here. And what we're going to do is select New Project. And we're going to create a new project for our character. And I'm going to call this Alice, because Alice, because that's who this character is. And I'm going to save it to the desktop. And we should be presented a screen that looks similar to this. Notice by default, our camera and audio recorders are both set to on. I can turn those off for now. And what we're going to do is double click in this area to open up our Alice Final Photoshop document, the one we just showed you with all the correct layers. Now what will happen is it will bring this in. Notice we're in the Record tab. So if we double click Alice here, it'll open up the Rig tab with Alice in the center of our stage, as you can kind of see here. If you've done everything correctly, what you should get is something that looks very similar to this. The crowns represent the pluses that you put into the naming of the folders and the layers. And those denote independence, so things can move independently from the body, for instance, which will be important, or the pupil will be able to move independently from the head so that it can be looking around. Select the name Alice here, and you'll notice right away there's an outline that shows everything that was created that's in this folder, with the exception of the left and right arms, because they're independent. In the umbrella, we can go ahead and make that independent as well, and you'll notice that it gets taken out of everything. And so now we have the body and the head group, which are not independent, and that's what we're seeing here. So we're going to walk through this and make sure everything is correctly tagged. So we're starting with our head group, and you'll notice that the tag for the head group is right here. I'm going to close this up so you can see some things here. And that is correct. And notice that the tags for nose and head are actually on this head group instead of on the actual nose. And so we're going to go ahead and fix that. So what I'm going to do is zoom in. So let's go ahead and open this up so I can see this. And I'm just going to bring this to 100%. I'm going to use my space bar. And so my head tag, which is right here, is the correct one. I'm going to move this down to right around here. And my nose tag is not correct, so I'm going to select it, and I'm just going to hit the word nose and make it go away. So there, that has now gone away, at least the tag. I am going to select the nose here while I'm at it, and I'm going to select the little button handle tool down here and click on it. This will allow me to create a new tag right here, and this one I will click on the nose for. And now that is my nose, and you notice nose, and there's one tag for it. And my head has one tag as well, and that's based on the neck here. Let's go to left eyebrow, and you'll notice, again, I'm going to zoom in a little bit tighter so you can see what's going on. You'll notice the left eyebrow is outlined because that's the only thing in that area, but the tag itself is a little bit off to it's on the center of the eye. And I'm going to go ahead and move that to right, so it sits right over the left eyebrow. So that's the left eyebrow. The right eyebrow looks like it's correct. This little tag is right on the eyebrow. This way, when it rotates or moves, it'll move on that anchor point, and it is correctly labeled. You can see that. The right eye is correctly labeled. You notice it right here, and obviously we can open this up to see what's inside, and that looks centered. The right blink is hidden, but you can turn that on and off to see what it looks like, but by default it's centered. And then the right pupil is another independent element, and notice that it's right here, and not only is it labeled correctly, but the anchor point's right on the center of it. So this looks good. Continue on with the left eye. That is correct. It's a little bit off center, but we can fix that if we wanted to. That's my left eye. I'm going to open it up and make sure my pupil is correct, and it is labeled. Very good, and that's good. Okay, so we can close up left and right eye. Our mouth group is here, and it is selected correctly. And notice that none of the mouths are turned on. So if you had anything on, you can always turn it off and just put the neutral. Obviously, we already created the nose and put that here. The face background also just working fine. So let's move on to the body group at this point. I'm going to zoom back out to fit into the entire window so you can see what I'm doing. Now my left arm, you can see it's surrounded here, and it has an anchor point here, and we know in motion that the anchor point should be right where they pivot. So let's go ahead and move our pivot here. Now you'll notice that if you move it outside of this group, the body group, it has no place to pivot onto. So you definitely want to make sure that everything is green, because we're taking this arm and we're attaching it to the body parts. So that's how this anchor point works. Let's go on our right arm, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to attach it right there. And then finally the body. And then the coat back is just a flappy thing that's just there. You can turn it off and on. You can see how that looks. The next part we're going to be doing is rigging this character. We're going to start with our left arm. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here so you can see what I am doing at 100%. And I'm going to use the space bar to pan it over here. I'm being careful not to move anything accidentally. So I like the location of the arm, and notice that we have this, this individual point that says left arm. We're going to go ahead and mark that with the shoulder, since that's what it is. So now I've got a tag for the left arm, and it is also the left shoulder. It's also the anchor point. So we've got both of those marked. We're going to be adding some more dots to this arm to correspond with the dots that we see on this little figure. So I'm going to put one at the elbow, and then one at the wrist, like that. And then I'm going to do the same with the right arm, one at the elbow, one at the wrist, like that. And then I'm going to go and select my selection tool, click on each of these dots, and then click on the actual location for each of these anchor points. So I'm going to select the elbow dot for this, and that's the right wrist. And then I'm going to make sure that the left arm was correct, all selected. So I'm going to select this right here, and I'm going to say that's the left elbow, and then finally I'm going to make that one the left wrist as well. Now we're going to go ahead and do the rest of these for the body group, because that's where everything else is. The legs are attached to the body, and as well as the hips and such. So we're just going to go again to the handle tool, click about here. Here's where the hip is, here's where another hip is, here's where the knees are. Let's see, right around here and here. I'm going quickly now at this point. Here's where the ankles are. And then finally, 1, 2, 1, 2. Even though these are pointing forward, we're just going to use these feet. And then we're just going to go through with our selection tool here and just select and label. That's what's gonna. Now we're doing this for a reason. When we turn on some of the rigging elements that help our character be more alive, it's got to see every single one of these points in order for it to automatically do certain things like walking or those kinds of things. So I'm going to have this heel, oops, I selected two heels. I select this one, hit the heel, and then finally the toe. Now if these were sideways the way we're showing now, that would make more sense, but at this point at least we have everything labeled. See, the only thing we haven't labeled here, oops, I have to undo that because I just moved. As you can kind of see, I've just moved things around. So here we go. Let's go ahead and zoom out. Be careful, don't move the figure. There we are, back to where we were. Only thing I haven't done is the neck, so let's go back to our head group. Let's go ahead and add one more tag for the head right here and make that the neck as well. Okay, so our head, this anchor point for the head is also the anchor point for the neck, as you can kind of see that. So I'm going to go to my record area here, and I'm going to create a new scene for my animation for Alice, and I'm just going to click on the clap stick here, and you'll see that Alice gets put into the area here. This is Alice, and you can see her here. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my video camera and turn on the audio so that you can actually see it. I'm going to reset my pose, and you'll notice right away that my face picks up all these dots, and those dots are going to automatically make our character work. Now, you can see if I move my head, my character's moving, but we can't really see the character. That's because the character's off stage here. It's too big. But I'm going to scooch the position of the character using this transform area. I'm going to just take the position for the Y and scooch it down so that you can see the face a little bit. And so now at this point, you can see I can look left, I can look right, I can look up, and I can look down. And the eyes are just going all over the place because they're just getting too close to the edge. So what we're going to do first off is fix the eye gaze. So I'm going to open this up, and you notice that it's set up to camera input. I can take this off and make it a keyboard input, and now I can use the up, down, left, and right arrow keys on the keyboard, as you can see. And you'll notice that it's way too strong for the keyboard, so I'm going to dial this down to around 60, and now I'm going to see how this looks. Looks pretty good. Okay, so 60 is what I want for all of these. 60, 60, 60. That means if I decide to use my camera, like by just turning this off and putting it back on camera, now I can look up, look down, look left, look right, and it's going to correspond, and it'll actually not go off the eye here. You notice my eyebrows are also up and down, so you can actually fix all these kinds of things, like the eyebrows. You can see much higher and then lower it so that it's not so strong. These are all things that you can do, and you notice that my mouth is automatically swapping out based on what I'm saying with the audio here. So everything's looking pretty good. My blinks are working pretty good, so I'm pretty happy. But at this point, I'm going to zoom out of this character, so I'm going to scale it to about 50% so you can see it. Scale it to 50, and I'm going to bring this position back to 0. And so right now you can kind of see that my character's kind of floating in air, and I can't really do anything to it. I can move back and forth a little bit to make it bigger or smaller, but this is at the point where we're going to need a little additional stuff here. So let's go back to our rig tab here, and what we're going to be putting into this character. First off, let's just turn off the umbrella so we don't see it. We're going to be putting in some draggers. So notice the right wrist here on the right arm. I'm going to actually select a modifier called draggable, and that allows me to grab this with my mouse and drag it around. I'm going to do the same with the left arm, select my wrist, and make that wrist draggable. So if I go back to my record session here, the umbrella goes away, and you can kind of see that I can actually pick up these hands and move them around. Now they feel a little bit like wet spaghetti, which may be what you want, but normally not. So we're going to go ahead and fix that next. Let's go back to the rig mode. So some of the things that can get rid of spaghetti are bones. So down here is a bone tool or a stick tool. I'm going to click on it, and then what I'm going to do is go to my left arm. I'm going to zoom in to 100%. Use the spacebar, and what I'm going to do is put a stick between these two dots and make sure not to touch any of these dots. Click, hold, and drag, and this will make a nice hard bone that when we drag this, it will actually just, it won't bend here, it'll only bend here, here, and here. So we're going to do that on the right arm as well. We're just going to put a bone here. We're not allowing the bone to touch the dot, and we're being careful not to make it too small, because otherwise it'll feel like it's it's kind of wiggly in the middle here, which is not what we want. Now we're going to go to the body, And we're going to put in some sticks as well, especially here from the hip to the knee, and here from the hip to the knee, and then finally from the knee to the ankle, knee to the ankle. Okay, we'll be putting these in. Now, you don't need to put just one stick in. If you want to really solid it up, you can put 2 sticks in if you wanted to. And you could put these sticks in anywhere you wanted some rigidity, if you had a character that needed that. All right, let's see what we've got. We're going to go back to our record mode. And now you can see that the arm is in fact bending. It still stretches like crazy, right? But it does bend. And notice how the arm overlaps here on the shoulder. It's attached at this point, which is why it looks the way it does. But we still have our figure floating in space. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix that next. Go back to our rig. I'm going to just go ahead and zoom out all the way so you can see that. And I'm going to now click up here on the actual Photoshop document. You see the little character, it looks like a pawn. Alice Final, that's our Photoshop document. And when you click on this, everything goes away, but these are all the modifiers that we've applied to this puppet. These are like preset things that Adobe Character Animator has lip sync automatically. It has eye gaze detection, allows us to drag. If it wasn't for these things, we wouldn't be able to do any of the things that we've done here. Now we're going to add a new behavior. Hit the plus button, and this behavior is going to be called limb inverse kinematics. And when we add this to our figure here, it is actually going to take everything that we've labeled correctly, and it's going to create something that's a lot more realistic with our figure. It's going to allow us to actually move the arms and the legs in a way that seems very realistic. Now, in order for this to work, if I open up the handles here, I'm still in the Alice Final here, everything needs to be correctly tagged. And you notice right here the left toe and the right toe are at 0. That means we have to go back and add those tags in, otherwise limb IK will not work. Notice everything else has a 1, but the right toe and the left toe have a 0. So let's go into the body, because that's where the toes are. And we're going to go back to our selection tool here and onto the body, and then we're going to zoom in at the level of tonus here. And I'm going to go ahead and hold the spacebar key down so that I can get to it, making sure not. So you can kind of see we did miss, in fact, the toe. There's one toe and there's another toe. So now we can fit this back in, and now we can look at Alice Final one more time. Go to our limb IK, and now everything has a 1 here, which is good. We can collapse the handles here. So what is this going to do for us? Well, let's take a look at our record tab, and it looks like it's the same thing, but now you'll notice that if I'm swaying and moving around, the knees are bending, the arms are bending more realistically, right? You can kind of see that. I can't stretch them as much anymore. In fact, they have almost no stretch. And in fact, you can open up your limb IK stuff here, and you can see you can take the stretchiness down to 0, so they don't stretch at all, right? This is way more realistic, right? And one of the things that limb IK allows you to do is allows you to bend in different directions. Like there's this like area that allows things to bend. Now, if you want the arm to bend up at this point, you can change some of these settings, like elbow flip threshold. So for instance, right here, I want the elbow to flip. I would just change the elbow flip threshold to until I see it pop. You can kind of see it now. And now that'll allow me to, let's say, so right here, I would like it to pop. So you can kind of see I can flip it right at 99. That means that when it goes this far, it is flipped this way. Otherwise, it flips the other way. Let me get this. Obviously, 99 is way too much. So let's bring that down to about 47. There we go. All right, so our character is now ready for animation, as you kind of see here. How do you go about animating it? So this is the next part. You can see down here that Alice Final is armed. If you turn that little button off, Alice is not even selectable. So in order for us to record something, you have to have that character in the timeline, and you have to have it turned on. Our timeline currently is got about 30 seconds of footage here, you can always make that longer if you wanted to. You can zoom in and out, as you can see here, right? But when we click on the scene here, it gives you some information about the scene itself. It says the duration is 30. The width is 1920 by 1080. We know those dimensions. If you wanted to make this a 40-second or 45-second duration, you just hit 45, and now you've got 45 seconds of stuff to work with. 24 frames per second frame rate, you can change this to 2997, or you can just leave it. We'll be bringing this into motion for our final work here. Okay, so in general, here's how it functions. When your character is armed, what will happen is we'll just go ahead and select our character. Everything that's red here will automatically be recorded. So all my triggers, the lip syncing will be recorded, the face gazing and moving around will be recorded, the eye gaze left and right, that'll be recorded, and our draggers, this will be recorded as well. Go ahead and just hit record at the beginning here. Gives us a count in, and at this point I can do something like move my arm here, wave hello, and then put my arm back here and hit the stop recording. Now you'll see that it created an audio track of my voice right here, right? It created the phonemes associated with the voice. I'm going to hit the plus button a couple times so you can see that. So you can see that as my voice talks, it actually creates these phonemes. And you can actually modify these by moving them. So if they don't correspond exactly to the areas here, you can get these to line up a lot better, right? You can select all of these and move them to the right or to the left, that kind of thing. And at this point, I can do something like move my arm here, wave. So the arm movement was actually part of the dragger. So if I turn off the dragger, you'll see the arm movement turns off, right? If I turn off the face, then the face doesn't move the body because that's what's controlling the body. So all of these things were recorded because I had everything to the right here. When I selected Alice here, I had everything on. And that's a great way of initially just recording something where your character is saying stuff. But a lot of times what you're going to want to do is do the movements of the arms and the movements of the body separate from the talking. I'm going to zoom out, minus, minus, minus. This is how it normally, what you do is you do passes. So for instance, I'm going to turn off my voice here. As you can see, the character is not listening anymore. I'm going to turn off the lip sync because there's no lip syncing to be had. I'm going to turn off the face and the eye gaze, and I'm only going to leave the dragger and the triggers on, and then we're going to go ahead and record another pass, but this time we're only looking at things that we can move around. So I'm going to hit the record button. And at this point, I can do something like move my arm here, wave hello, and then put my arm back here. And so, as you can see, I actually did a take here. And now this take was the actual arm movement. If I move it out here, you'll see it's just the arm, right? And I can actually take this take and fade it in with the existing one. So this was the existing take right here. And then we have this new take right here that will override this original take right here. And the way that they can work, for instance, is you can actually blend one take into another. So these little blend handles allow you to say, okay, take this take and blend it in with this. So we started with, I'll just move this out of the way. We started with the arms moving. I'm going to turn this audio off so I don't hear it. We started with the arms moving like this. But I didn't like that, so I can put this one in and notice that the arms start moving here, but then it'll fade into this movement. And then it'll slowly, and now this is the second take, and that now fades back out to a default stance here. Now the nice thing about this take is you can just like watch it on your own. And if I wanted this wave here to happen, I could actually keep this as a button press. So if I right click on this and create a replay trigger, what happens is now I have something that if I hit the play button here and hold it, it actually remembers that entire like sequence of things, and it goes ahead and does it. Notice that it has let replay finish. That means all I had to do is hit the play button once, and it goes through this entire sequence here. If I wanted to, I could say stop and sustain replay, and that allows me to click and hold the button, and if I let go, it goes back to the original look here, right? Now, it also created a dragger here, which is under triggers. So now I have this new trigger, and if I right click and rename this trigger wave, and I click in here and I hit the letter W for wave, now if I'm on my character, and you can kind of see it here, and I hit the W and hold it, you'll notice that it's actually playing this playback, which is really great. Using these triggers, you can actually create like all kinds of different things. Like for instance, say I want to have the character standing like this every once in a while. So all I need to do is record this position very quickly and then create a trigger that triggers this person into this position, or into the hand raising position, or into the like moving the arms like this position. So all I have to do is record that. For instance, say I like this position, it's kind of a default like stance, right? While she's talking, I could just go puppet or timeline, and notice that I can just record a 2-frame take, Command 2. The nice part is it's like move to a different part of the playhead, get your puppet ready, do a Command 2, and then all of a sudden, if you zoom in, you've got this very short, like boom, boom, right? You can open this up, and remember this is 2 different handles, the left handle and the right handle, and then I can give it a little bit of a fade in, so it goes like this, right? That seems a little fast, so I can fade it in a little bit more, and then I can fade this out as well. So here's what that looks like. So if I wanted to turn this into a take, right click, create a new trigger. I'm going to call this trigger stand, and I'm going to give it S for a button here. And if I hit the letter S now, it just does that. So notice that now you can actually move these arms both at the same time without using your mouse. And I don't need this anymore, so I can delete it. And I can continue making new triggers the same exact way. So for instance, if I want to have one hand here and the other hand raising the hand, I can do a Command 2. That creates a take with that look. I can open this up, make a nice little fade in, make a nice little fade out, record the trigger itself, call this hand in air, just like asking a question, and that's how it's going to look. So, and then I can delete it and do another trigger. And remember, this doesn't have to be a 2-second. It can actually be a full like thing. So for instance, if you want to have it like pointing, or you want to have her pointing somewhere like over there, and just moving the arm like that, you can just hit play, right? And she's just moving over there. And since everything else is turned off, none of the other things are there. And then she's just doing that. We can give it a little bit of a fade in. You can open this up a little bit and then do a little fade out, and then it looks like this. Seems like a fade in is a little too slow. Let's try that. Right, and then maybe it's a little too long. So there we go. And again, the fade in, fade out's a little too long as well. So we can just do something like that. And then I can turn this into, again, another trigger, and that's like pointing. And I could just use the letter P or something else. The nice thing is you can also use Midi Notes. The keyboard that you have down below you can be used for that, which is really great. All right, I'm going to record a whole new section here and I'm going to turn the dragger off. I don't need it anymore. The lip sync, the face. We do need the triggers turned on, otherwise they won't work, right? Because we're going to hit the S, and we can practice. We can hit letter S, we can hit the letter P, but you can kind of see how you're creating a whole bunch of different like potential like looks. So here's how it would look. So I'm just pointing over there. Do you see me pointing and blinking? And now I'm going to hit the S button because that's just how I do it. And notice that the phonemes did not get recorded, but all the takes you can kind of see here did get recorded. Okay, so and because I did not have the audio on, it didn't allow my voice to get mapped. Be ready then to export it in the following manner. Go to File. When you're all done, export, and you're going to export with Media Encoder with the alpha, just like we talked about in class. You're going to save this as a movie file on the desktop, and I'm just going to put this as take 1 because I'm not quite done. Okay, so here we are. This is what is ready, and if I hit the play button, it would export this video in a format called GoPro Cineform. This is not what we want. Click on this. And what we want is ProRes 444 with alpha. If you're in the lab, Apple ProRes is there, and this will work with Adobe or with Motion. And we definitely want to export the video and the audio. And we'll hit OK. And at this point, now that we have ProRes 444 with alpha, we can hit the play button. This will export whatever we've done, all 45 seconds, as something that's usable in Motion. So I'm going to go ahead while this is exporting. I'm going to open up Motion, and then I'm going to show you how that character looks inside of Motion. And in Motion, we're just going to go and create a default 29:7 30-second Motion document. And I'm going to go ahead and import that footage with the alpha channel right here. Notice it's fairly big. And just to prove that there is an alpha channel, I'm just going to put this rectangle here and move it underneath the character, as you can kind of see. I'm going to add a camera. I'm going to switch to 3D. I'm going to add a light. I'm going to add the light, move it up here. I'm going to take my, I'm going to fit this to the screen so we can see the entire thing. And as we know with the lights, you can move those anywhere you want. And I'm going to move my character forward a little bit. And again, the character is just a movie, as you can kind of see. And just like we've done in the past, we can change the Z position for the character to bring it backwards or forward. You can kind of see that. Remember, we're working in three-dimensional space, so which is really nice. So you've got your character here, and you can see that you're moving them behind or in front of the rectangle. And the same with the rectangle, we can move it further or farther back. We can scale that so it takes up more of the space. And with my light, I can go ahead and turn on the shadows just so you can see that there are shadows here, right? I'm going to actually make the shadows a little softer and a little less crazy intense, and also change the location of my light so it's not so the shadows, so it feels like it's a little bit more overhead here. And if I go back to my camera view, here's what I've got. I can fit this to the screen, and here's what we've got so far. Hopefully this helps a little bit and gets you ready for the project.